After 5 losses in a row, are the St. Louis Cardinals suddenly in free fall? We've got to talk about it coming up on B-Schaeff Daily. What's going on, everyone, and welcome in to this edition of B-Schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Thursday evening, June 12th, 2025. Happy 6th anniversary of the day that they went blues for hockey fans among us. But for the baseball fans, yeah, 5 losses in a row now as the defeats are piling up for the St. Louis Cardinals. They dropped the opener in Milwaukee 6-0. Clean, systematic defeat tonight at the hands of the Brewers as Jacob Misiorowski was really, really good for Milwaukee. Had his start cut short by an ankle injury. I don't know, he seemed to just step weird on it after about 5 innings. But, man, he was dominant, and the Cardinals couldn't do anything against him. No hits for the Cardinals against the Milwaukee starter making his MLB debut. He did walk 4, so they had a few base runners, but couldn't push any runs across. And then the bullpen for Milwaukee. You thought maybe there's a moment in the game where the Cardinals are able to find some rhythm because they can get into the Milwaukee pen, get that starter out of the game that had been giving them such fits. Nope, that didn't happen either. The Cardinals shut out in the opener in Milwaukee. They lose it 6-0, and the Milwaukee Brewers have now surpassed the Cardinals in the NL Central standings. So we're starting to talk about, are the Cardinals heading in the wrong direction and moving fast downward in the standings, in the realm of the competitive, as they fall to 36-33, and even the Reds are now a game behind St. Louis. Cardinals could very easily wind up in 4th place in the division before the end of the weekend. So we'll talk about the state of things and how I'm viewing this 5-game losing streak for the Cardinals. Talk about Sonny Gray's role in it tonight, as he didn't sustain what he was doing for the first 4 innings. The 5th inning is the one that got to him, and he didn't get out of it. It piled up quickly on Sonny Gray, as so often seems to happen in his bad games. It happens in a hurry. We'll talk about that, and we might even play a little bit, courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest, the postgame thoughts of Sonny Gray. It was a little weird, his postgame presser. And it was weird, but I want to kind of contextualize the weird and give my thoughts on that, because I've seen some people kind of maybe jumping off the ledge a little bit with regard to that, which is maybe fair. It was bizarre what he had to say, but we'll talk about it. And I'll tell you what I'm expecting for the rest of the weekend, because 5 in a row is one thing, but the Cardinals don't necessarily have the looks right now of a team that's suddenly about to grab hold of things and turn it around, and the pitching matchups aren't necessarily lined up in a way that tells you that's going to happen either. So I'll give my thoughts on that and everything going on right now with the Cardinals before we go down on the farm and actually give you some good news from some exciting stuff that happened down in Springfield on Thursday night. If you are a Cardinals fan and you like daily St. Louis Cardinals content to be in your ear hole, that sounded weird. If you want to listen to Cardinals baseball talk every day, good, bad, or indifferent, then this is the place to be. B-Schaeff Daily, your everyday St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Subscribe on YouTube to this channel or follow the podcast on Spotify. Just search B-Schaeff Daily. All right, 6-0 Brewers. Once again, we're seeing the Cardinals offense begin to sputter. We saw a couple of examples of the offense showing some grit and some fight in games 1 and 2 against the Blue Jays. Still lost a couple of 1-run games. Game 3, I thought you maybe started to see the cracks there a little bit in the resolve as the Cardinals, as Wednesday afternoon's game went along, just didn't quite mount anything at the plate. And tonight, that was more of the same. I was not surprised in the least. I said on the big show on KTGR on Thursday afternoon that I thought the Cardinals would lose today, that I thought Misiorowski would be a tough matchup for them. We always see it against guys that make their MLB debut. Against the Cardinals, it usually doesn't go well. Now, there have been examples to the contrary. I think, what was the kid's name? Chase Petty for the Reds. He didn't have a very good time against the Cardinals during that debut. So there are definitely examples to the contrary. But this Misiorowski kid is tough, and he has a really good arsenal, and the Cardinals just haven't been really humming the last couple of days anyway. So I just had a bad feeling about this one. And I also recognize that Sonny Gray was pitching on the road. And when Sonny Gray pitches on the road, he looks a lot different than what happens when he pitches at home. That has been a trend for him going back to last year. Ever since he's been with the Cardinals, the last couple of seasons, that has held. I think he had like a 5.2 ERA on the road in 2024. tonight's outing in which he gave up 6 earned runs, all of those runs coming in the 6th inning. Well, 5 of the 6 came in the 6th inning. He had a tough second inning where he threw 27 pitches, gave up a run, but he was pretty good in innings 1, 3, and 4. I think they were all 10 innings or 10 pitches or fewer in those 3 innings. And then the 5th inning, the wheels just came off in fantastical fashion. So Sonny Gray was not able to sustain things, and once again we find a rough road appearance for him. I think he's up to like a 5.3 ERA on the road this year. Nope, it's worse than that. 5.88 road ERA in 2025, 2.85 when he pitches at Busch Stadium at home. The home run differential, he's given up 6 homers in 5 road games. He's given up 4 homers in 9 home games. So the Cardinals have done well to pitch him at Busch as often as they possibly can. I don't know if that's just been luck of the draw or if there has been anything behind the scenes, the Cardinals gearing him toward that. I would say it would be more luck of the draw based on the way that I know the Cardinals are positioning their rotation this year. It's more about just making sure they get everybody ample rest to try to keep them healthy and strong through a full season. But we're starting to see this group break down, or at least wear down at a minimum, and this was one where Sonny was just not able to get himself deep into this game and be effective in this game against a Brewers lineup they've got a pretty good lineup over there in Milwaukee. I mean, they don't have a ton of superstars, and really they don't have a ton of guys that are performing up to expectation this year. So for their record to be where it is, 4 games over 500, where the Cardinals are 3 games over. Milwaukee's played a 70th game. The Cardinals have played 69 games. Some of them have been nice, others not so much. Cardinals are 36-33. The Brewers 37-33. But I'm looking at this lineup. Sal Frelick is a good player. He had a great night tonight, going 3 for 4 in this game. He's up to a 749 OPS. Jackson Chourio is a 735 OPS. He had the big swing, a home run off of Sonny Gray. 735 OPS is he's capable of far more. William Contreras is capable of far more. 684 OPS. Yelich 740. He's capable of more. Rhys Hoskins is having a good year. 774 is his OPS. Bryce Terang down at 695 is capable of more. So, and like the other 3 in their lineup are some newer guys or some unsung players without big track records. So they've got 6 guys that are pretty good players, and I think a lot of them could be doing better than they are right now. The Brewers are definitely a team to be reckoned with, especially if you consider their pitching. The Cardinals, in the pitching that they're going to see the rest of this series, is what gives me a little bit of pause and concern about the degree to which they're going to be able to quickly turn this thing around. Because I don't think the Cardinals really have a pitching matchup advantage in any of these games upcoming this weekend. Tomorrow, or now probably today, as you listen to this episode here on Friday, the Cardinals will have Eric Fetty going to the mound, opposed by Freddie Peralta, who's been very, very good. 2.69 ERA for Peralta this year, bunch of strikeouts, a tough customer. The Cardinals do have some guys with good numbers against him, including Arenado and Contreras. And weirdly, Pedro Pajes is 2 for 2 with 2 home runs against him. So I think Pajes should certainly be in the lineup on Friday if I were deciding things. Eric Fetty, we know the deal. He's been up and down, but the ERA is 3.54. He's walking a bunch. He walked several Dodgers and found a way to escape some jams to have a scoreless appearance in his last start. He's going to have to do that again, and I would just say, I would watch the walks. We say it every outing with him. Sometimes it comes back to bite him. Sometimes he gets away with it. But I would say Peralta versus Fetty, I give the edge to Peralta. Palante versus Jose Quintana, the former Cardinal, who has a 2.66 ERA this year. He's going to be a problem on Saturday. I would be surprised if he gives up more than a run. That's just the nature of the way that it feels when the Cardinals face a guy like him. And he's going against Palante, 4.75 ERA. Yeah, I'll give the edge to Quintana and the Brewers once again. We don't know Milwaukee's starter for Sunday, but Michaelis will go on the mound for the Cardinals, so you're not necessarily anticipating a huge pitching edge for St. Louis in that game. So that means you got to find a way to win some of these games that you may not have the edge when it comes to the probable starter advantage. How do you do that? I think you do it by the offense having to come to life. But will it for the Cardinals? You're seeing Lars Nootbaar, 0 for 3 with a walk tonight. OPS down to 702. He's hitting 230. He didn't strike out, so that's a step in the right direction compared to what he had been doing. But it's a concern. Who do you bat at leadoff? There's a lot of Cardinals fans kind of saying Oli Marmol should be doing differently there. I understand that sentiment. I don't know the answer to who would be the leadoff guy if not Lars Nootbaar right now. I'm not saying Lars Nootbaar has done enough to keep his job in his role. I'm saying nobody else in this lineup is necessarily showcasing themselves for it. Mason Wynn was 0 for 4 tonight, down to a 732 OPS. Ivan Herrera is quickly falling toward the 900 mark, which 900 is still pretty damn good, but he's coming back down to earth in a real way, hitting 308, 914 OPS. I think he will level out around at 800 OPS, give or take. He won't be a 300 hitter. As time goes on, those numbers are going to continue to come back down to earth. It's all about consistency. Herrera can find it. He was batting third tonight. Still waiting to see Brendan Donovan come back, and hopefully that happens sooner than later. You can make a case that Alec Burleson would be an intriguing choice for leadoff, not because of his speed, though, but he has been putting the ball in play more often than not. 292 average, 753 OPS. He was 1 for 4 tonight. Contreras had a hit and a walk. Arenado with a hit, but that's all the Cardinals mustered offensively. A walk apiece for Gorman and Victor Scott. 3 hits for the team. This was a very lackluster performance by the offense. Does not give you a lot of faith that the offense will be the driving force behind the Cardinals mounting a charge and at least splitting this series best 2 of 4. Not best 2 of 4, but just 2 of 4 would be the split that they need. And I don't know where that's coming from. If it's not the pitching advantage, if the offense is struggling, this could be bleak. I mean, this does set up as a series where, I kind of said on the radio today, I thought the Cardinals would lose the first one, thought it was a bad matchup, but that I thought they could split the series. Now that I'm actually digging in a little bit more on the pitching matchups, 1 out of 4 is, I think, my new prediction. So I'm not blowing sunshine. I know we get a few commenters, especially on the STL Sports Central postgame show that I did with Sarah Daly on Thursday night, that just say, oh, man, blowing sunshine, this media, the way people talk sometimes. No, it's not that. Look, we'd like to see the Cardinals doing better. It makes it more fun to talk about, more fun to write about. There's no doubt about that. But right now, we do have to evaluate it for what it is. We don't have to declare anything long range about this team. I think everybody wants to jump to say, oh, they're this, they're that, based on a stretch of a few games. You can if you want to, but then what happens when, you find a stretch where they win 6 of 7, and are they the greatest team to ever put on a baseball uniform? No. In the end, they're going to be somewhere in between that, and the Cardinals get to decide it, as I've continued to echo the quote of Paul Goldschmidt from a couple of years ago, when everybody was worried about the state of the team and they were below 500 and it didn't seem like they were coming around. And Goldschmidt said, look, we think we're a pretty good team, but at the end of the day, baseball is a fair game, and you'll play for 6 months and the record will tell you who you were that year. And that year, the Cardinals were not very good. They were a bad team, and this year remains to be seen. They're still 3 games above 500. There's a lot of room, I think, for the Cardinals to still be a good competitive team. There's room for them to fall off a cliff and then sell off at the deadline and be a bad team again this year when it's all said and done. There's also plenty of room for them to be somewhere in the middle. And right now they're on the slightly better side of the middle, but I could see in the end them just being a very average, mediocre team this year. But they get to decide it with their performance. I'm just talking in the terms of momentum, which we know is only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. Right now, the Cardinals don't have a lot of momentum in terms of predicting that the offense is going to turn, predicting that out of nowhere the rotation is going to find it back. Bullpen, I will see on that front. I mean, Helsley, we've had our concerns with him. You've had other guys that have been touched up a bit recently. We will say Andre Granillo, good on the Cardinals, better late than never, finally bringing him up. They should have done it sooner, but they've done it now, so we move on and talk about the here and now. And he was 2 2/3 scoreless tonight, getting the Cardinals a bit of respite for the bullpen, which needs it. Granillo got the call, in case you missed it, the promotion from AAA in a series of moves that was announced on Thursday afternoon. They are the moves that I think I said on the KTGR Big Show yesterday. It had to happen. Didn't end up with a time to do a podcast last night, so I do apologize for that after Wednesday's sweep against Toronto. But if I had, you would have heard me say the same things I said on the Big Show. Got to get Granillo up. There's no reason he's not here. The strikeout rate is something that they don't have in the big leagues from many of their relievers. Will it be maintained by him in the big leagues? Probably not. He didn't strike out anybody tonight, I don't believe, but did record 8 outs, so you'll take it where you can get it. But they give him an opportunity. Ryan Vilade was DFA'd. It had to happen. He doesn't bring anything to the table. God bless him. But that was just, we all knew what had to happen there. Michael Ciani called up from a position player standpoint. I'm fine with that and not surprised by it. I think if you could go back a week ago to the beginning of the Jordan Walker injury, or like 10 days ago, whenever it was, well, obviously now knowing what you know, you wouldn't have put Vilade on the 40-man just to now have to pass him through waivers, although I don't know how concerned they are with keeping him in the organization because they've got other outfielders that need playing time at Memphis, and some of those guys could serve a role in the big league someday, and Vlade cannot. I just don't think he's cut out for the role that the Cardinals were looking for him to fill, which was that right-handed hitting outfielder off the bench that could at least provide a little bit of a spark at the plate, and he did not. 1 for 13, 5 strikeouts. We saw it. It's done. But I think if they had it to do over again, even now knowing Vlade, didn't perform well in his chance, that notwithstanding, you probably goes to JC because there has been a lot of opportunity that he could have filled in. Think about all the Vlade starts, although they had been hesitant to put Donovan in the outfield, and maybe we saw why, because he's out there and the toe is aggravated a couple of days ago, and we're still waiting to see him return to the lineup. I would not be stunned at this point to see a potential IL stint for Brendan Donovan. It remains to be seen. They're hopeful that it doesn't happen. It was described by Donovan, I saw reported by Jeff Jones, that it would be the worst-case scenario for him to have an IL stint for an injury like this. But can the Cardinals continue to play short when they've got games that they need to win against the division rival that just passed them in the standings? If Donovan can't play by Saturday, maybe that's even too long to wait. They might give him Friday, and then Saturday they'll at least be able to backdate it by a few days. But it's going to be crunch time a little bit. He's kind of their most consistent hitter, and so you definitely don't want to lose him for an additional week if he only has to miss 5 days. But we'll see what ends up happening there with Brendan Donovan. They sure do miss his bat in the lineup when he's a 300 hitter, 800 OPS guy, and right now they're scuffling at the plate. So that would be probably my answer, honestly, for leadoff if he were healthy, is putting Brendan Donovan in there. You can leave Mason at number 2. Honestly, you can move Mason down, not because he's struggling any more than anybody else, but because I think you're kind of getting to the point where that hole at the bottom of your lineup is vast and noticeable. And it's almost like Victor being left alone there at the bottom of the lineup without another guy like him, like Mason, with the speed and the excitement, the exuberance, and stacking those guys. Maybe that there was a little bit of intangible benefit to that, just kind of like a keep the line moving mentality between those two speedsters that you lose a little bit of with Mason now up at the 2 spot. I could be overthinking it, but I might even consider moving Mason down back to that kind of 8 spot in the lineup just to see if you spark something for a shakeup. You could move Contreras up to 2. You could move Herrera up to 2. But you could also go. Like, I do think it's been a 5-game losing streak. Not every game has been bad offensively to where you have to panic about your lineup, but I have never minded just trying stuff to see what sticks. I don't think that's a problem. Ollie is not usually a manager who does things that way, but I could come up with just to throw something at the wall kind of lineup and still give it some parameters that make sense, at least on paper. I could see that being a compelling thing. Like, for example, could go, again, this is assuming Donovan doesn't need an IL stint. You could go Donovan and either Win or another right-handed batter like Herrera. Let's just say it's Win. Donovan, Win, Burleson, get a lefty in that 3 spot still instead of where Donovan had been. Contreras 4. 5 can be Nootbaar. Put him into a more RBI spot, see if that changes the look for him. Arenado 6th. And if Gorman's in there, he can be 7th. Pages 8th. 9th for Victor. I don't know if everybody has a position in that alignment, but something kind of like that. And then Jordan Walker is going to come back. He started a rehab on Thursday. We'll get into down on the farm how that went. I actually have not even seen it myself yet, but I'll pull up that information and make sure we've got that for you. Looked like that game. I did know that game was stopped early for rain, which cut the night short for Quinn Matthews and also for Jordan Walker. But we'll talk about all that and down on the farm. Yeah, we'll see. Lineup needs a jolt, but where's it coming from? I don't know that there's going to be anybody like coming up to change it. All the guys that are worth being here are either on the IL, shortly going to be back, or they're already here. So we'll see where the Cardinals find themselves offensively, but I think that's what's got to be. If you're going to beat the Brewers this weekend, the bats are going to have to carry you because it's just hard to envision you're going to get 3 straight shoves from Fedde, Palante, Michaelis. So you got to get to 4 or 5 runs at least and then let it play out in some tough divisional games. And if you don't, let's say drop 3 or 4, suddenly you're basically a 500 team at that point, 2 games up. If you're swept, you are a literal 500 team heading into the Chicago White Sox series, which is not where you want to be. and that's a team that you should be able to beat up on. But if the confidence is low going into that series, you could see things spiral. So, like, the question of are the Cardinals in free fall is a fair question. My answer is that they're not yet, but they are close to it. They're teetering on the edge. And the way that the weekend sets up, I don't predict a big turnaround. And so with that in mind, you can start to paint the picture that free fall is we're in the early stages here. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about where this thing is heading. It's so hard to get super riled up about it. Like, it stinks because in May, we really thought this Cardinals team was something, and they still could be. But at the beginning of the season, we were gearing up to talk about this in kind of these middling terms of, yeah, they're going to win 78 games or 82 or 76 or 84. They're going to be somewhere in the middle because they didn't try to add in the offseason, and we're going to get a look at a lot of the players that are internal candidates to kind of set the stage for the roster next year in 26. So, like, we came in thinking they'd lose some games and would be, there'd be nights like this, and that would be part of the growing pains. But now that we saw May happen, it's almost like, well, we want to be a little bit more upset if things do fall apart. But expectations were so low to come into the year that, where do we set our anchor as what we expect of the team now? I think they showed us enough in May that it's okay to hold them to a higher standard than we thought we would coming into the year. But it's also like you always kind of lean back on that. Well, what do you expect? Do you look at this rotation on paper and think it's a top 10 unit? No. We look at it on paper and say, I don't know. And then we look at it in the record book and say, oh, it's like a top half unit, pretty solid based on the way it's performed so far. But has it been performing above its head with a lot of pitch to contact guys and not a lot of swing and miss? And that's why we're seeing it come back down to earth. Very possible. We're going to get to see that play out in one direction or another as time goes along. But if the offense is coming back down to earth and the rotation is coming back down to earth, yeah, you can see a lot of different ways that this could continue to turn sour. It was sour certainly tonight for Sonny Gray. I want to play a little bit of his press conference, as I teased earlier. Not his press conference, but just the media talking to him up in Milwaukee in front of his locker in the visitors' clubhouse. I was not up there, obviously, so this will be courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest. But just take a listen to Sonny Gray. He said he didn't feel great tonight and didn't have a lot of answers for why.
What do you look at in that that series goes double, single, homer?
I don't know. It wasn't good. I wasn't good. We weren't good. We're not playing good. Just nothing good. I don't know. I'll look at it.
You had been in a good stretch, 13 in the third, scoreless innings. Could you sense it early on that maybe you didn't have velo or whatever?
I just didn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't feel comfortable. It was kind of, like I said, felt like I was kind of getting by, and then it kind of unraveled there on me.
Is that clear, Sonny? That's a regular, doesn't feel right, doesn't feel comfortable, not anything you're concerned about overly going into a nice one?
I don't know. We'll see.
Is it when you not feel right, does that lead to just where the pitches go? Or
I don't know.
What does during a stretch like this, as well as anybody as a veteran, what does the team need from its starters at this point? Just what they can do.
Outs, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
You spoke last time about being a stopper. You stopped a losing streak last time. You take pride in doing that, right? I mean,
I didn't speak about that last time. Y'all spoke about that. I spoke about that a while ago. I enjoyed doing that. It didn't happen today. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
Thank you, Sonny.
There you go from Sonny Gray, kind of pushing back on JD's question. And he's a very literal guy in a lot of ways. So he said, you spoke about that last time. He's like, well, no, I didn't. I spoke about that. And he knows exactly when he spoke about that. It's a topic of conversation that he gets asked about a lot. It's kind of a narrative street sort of deal. But I think it's also very real, too. Like, I don't think that's just a contrived narrative that the media makes up. The notion of a stopper, anytime a team is on a skid, and, this series did kind of set up for Sonny to be that stopper because of the way, like, you could paint a picture, and people will say I'm being a homer for it, or I'm, given the rosier point of view, but you could have painted a picture that, all right, you lose the series finale against the Dodgers, so what? You still won 2 of 3. That's a pretty good outcome. You'll take it. And then you get into the Blue Jays series. Ollie Marmol talking the other night after game 2 of the series, I believe it was, said, we knew coming into this one that this series against the Blue Jays might even be a tougher matchup for us than the Dodgers series. And you say, well, the Dodgers are a better team. I mean, they're World Series favorites to just about anybody that you might ask. How do you come up with that take? But the reason that he was explaining it that way, and I agree with this, is because of the Blue Jays, as we talked about the other night. Their contact rate is extremely high. They're the toughest team in the league to strike out in terms of their batters. They're not striking out against your pitchers. And the Cardinals pitchers don't tend to strike out a lot of guys anyway. So they knew there'd be a lot of balls in play, a lot of hits. It happened that way, and it turned out to have been a pretty tough matchup. Cardinals got swept. But you could say, all right, stylistically, there might not be a much tougher matchup against the Cardinals than what those guys brought to the table. And so, you might have expected a sweep. I didn't expect it. I thought the Cardinals at least were going to win the Bassett game because of the guys that had good numbers against him, like Gorman, who homered again, Burleson, some others. And they weren't able to get that one because the pitching blew up in that 10-9 game. So you can kind of look at that, though, and say, all right, I mean, you knew it would be a tough series. No big deal. Series win over the Dodgers. You get swept by the Blue Jays, but you could kind of see that one being a tricky one for you anyway. All right, go to Milwaukee. You got your ace on the mound, guy that's been 13 1/3, scoreless in the last 2 outings. Really good situation, really good setup. But then you can also go, well, and I did this. I said today on the radio that I didn't think they were going to win. I said, well, Sonny Gray on the road gave you those splits, 5.8 ERA now on the road, 2.8 at home. That's kind of the difference. And Mizorowski making his debut, that does not bode well. And it didn't. So you could still kind of say, well, even though you've lost 5 in a row, one of that was you had just beaten the Dodgers twice, so it's okay. You get swept, which you never want to get swept, but you kind of saw it coming as being a tough matchup. It's not indicative of anything deeper necessarily. And then, all right, you lose the first game of a series to the Brewers in a situation that kind of felt like you were going to have some trouble. Okay, like you can minimize that for sure. I could paint you a picture where that's not a big deal. 5 in a row, though, is, no matter how they come, is not good. It's not what you want. And if toward the tail end of that 5, as we've seen, maybe part of the reasons for the last 2 has been just the lineup starting to kind of be lulled to sleep a little bit. Not as good on the ABs, not as good on the grinding it out, not as good on the sticking with it and punching back. That has been the way I would categorize the last 2 days. And that's, I always hesitate to do that because they're never going to give in. Like, these are professionals, they're taking great at-bats, whatever. I know that's how the coaching staff and the manager would characterize it. But I feel like intellectually I could be honest and say, like, the at-bats didn't look quite as good. And they didn't look like they had the same degree of fight. And so, you're kind of waiting for that to return in a meaningful way, which I certainly think that it can. But it almost kind of has to in a hurry right now because of the state of things. Because it is a crowded NL Central. The Brewers are not only nipping on your heels, they've now passed you. Half game ahead. Reds are a game behind you. Got a lot of divisional games coming up. You see the Reds, you see the Cubs. That's happening over the course of the next 2 weeks. With one more interleague series mixed in there after Milwaukee is the White Sox, which should be a respite. I mean, you got to win 2 or 3 at a minimum. Probably need to sweep playing a team like that. But if they go in there on still a losing skid, it'll be hard to predict a sudden turnaround for them against anybody. So it's getting a little tenuous here, and we'll see what the Cardinals do. And I do think it matters because if they're 8, 9, 10 games above 500, we're not talking about selling off at the deadline. But if you're 2 games above 500 or 3 like they are now, it's a lot more of a tricky spot to be in with all those 1-year contracts. And, knowing that this was not billed as a season where they were going to be going all out to contend. So a lot's going to be decided, I think, over the next, whatever it is, 6 weeks or so. And June's a big month for those divisional games that are beginning in earnest right now. So let me know in the comments below, Cardinals fans, what you think. I think we covered just about everything that I meant to there. So now we'll go ahead and go down on the farm and talk about Jordan Walker's rehab and a really good night in Springfield as we go down on the farm. It's time to go down on the farm. Brought to you by Hastings Layers Premium Eggs.
You'll be happier than a jackass eating thistle.
Huh? So we'll start in AAA because it's a brief conversation. The Redbirds game postponed mid-game down there in Gwinnett as the rain got them. But Memphis was leading 6-2 when the game was suspended. A little bit of a tricky outing for Quinn Matthews, dodging some raindrops there. But box score, some good with some bad. 3 innings, 2 hits, 2 runs allowed. So that'd be a 6 ERA if you counted that. But also had 5 strikeouts in 3 innings. Also had 4 walks in 3 innings. So there's a lot going on there for Quinn. I'll count it as a positive that you're getting the swing and miss at the AAA level and that he limited some of that damage despite having 6 base runners, only 2 of them scored. Maybe he was going to find it and have a really interesting outing if he could have avoided the rain. You go 5-6 innings and rack up 5 more strikeouts. We're still talking about an interesting outing, but a little good with some bad. I never worry too much about the walks from guys in AAA because it's an adjustment for sure at that level. New baseball compared to the one they use in AA too. So maybe still getting a little bit acclimated with that and having some sporadic times where he doesn't have as good of a feel on the ball and you're going to walk more guys. Not the end of the world to me there. Jordan Walker, 0 for 2, but did reach base via walk as well. So he managed to get 3 plate appearances in, was batting second in the lineup between Church and Crooks. And so 3 plate appearances before the rain swept him out of that game. Probably not ideal for the situation of trying to get him back to the Cardinals roster, but they'll give him a couple games, I figure, either way. So 0 for 2 with a walk, did have a strikeout, but I think more than anything, it's just about pain-free swings and having that wrist no longer hampering him. But that's the status there. Prieto had a home run, his 6th of the season in that game, and so he really was one of the guys pacing the offense there. That's what's going on for Memphis. But I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking about Springfield because there's a couple of guys that we want to make sure to touch on from Springfield. They had an exciting game down there in Springfield, taking on the Tulsa Drillers. 4-3, the Springfield Cardinals got the win in 10 innings, extra inning battle, after a wonderful performance from starting pitcher Eshawn Henderson, 6 2/3 innings. My goodness, at AA, you don't hardly often see that. 2 hits allowed, 3 walks, but only 1 run, pitching into the 7th and recording a couple of outs there. 5 strikeouts, 1.95 is the ERA for Eshawn Henderson. Yeah, I think he'll be joining Tekoa Roby in Memphis before too long. And then if by a few weeks from now that Memphis rotation has Henderson, has Roby, has Quinn Matthews, suddenly that Memphis team's getting a lot more interesting as they've had some starters in there that are just out there kind of wearing it, with the way that they've been pitching this season. But it's starting to get a little bit more interesting now. And maybe even Tink Hens could get back to full health and join those guys in AAA. So good stuff from Eshawn Henderson. And you might ask, well, how did they win it? You said they won it in the 10th inning. Must have been a walk-off. Well, it was a walk-off. How about this? JJ Wetherholt comes up with the decisive swing, a walk-off base hit as it scores Dakota Harris, and the Springfield Cardinals win it 4-3. JJ had a nice day. 2 for 3, couple of RBIs, couple of walks as well, so he's on base 4 times. Had a double in the game and also stole his 9th base of the season. JJ looks good. 319 average, 914 OPS. Think he'll definitely be looking to see him continue to sustain what it looks like and how it feels for him. But I don't know. Memphis could be in the offing. If I set the over-under at All-Star break, Big League All-Star break, I would say maybe this could be close. I could lean under on that. Because reality, it could happen any day if they decided he's ready. Or they could continue to say, look, we're looking at this 2025 season in totality. He will knock on Memphis's door at some point this year, but we're not rushing him to the big leagues in 2025. So under that thought process, it might be fine to just give him a little bit more of a run at Springfield. We'll see what they think about that. But I would say if you're a Springfield Cardinal fan and you're hoping to get to see JJ and you haven't yet, get on over there because I don't know how much longer he'll be there, the way it's looking right now. Again, that's just kind of from a distance, looking at the way things have gone in the box scores. But I don't know. I think you could see it by July. Could certainly be moving month. And look, we're not even that deep into June, and the numbers look really good. So you never know. Those are my thoughts on everything going on in Springfield, going on in Memphis, and going on with your St. Louis Cardinals. Let me know yours in the comment section below, and make sure you hit that subscribe button to catch up with all of our content all season long on b-schaeff Daily. The channel membership is the best way you can support the channel in this independent Cardinals content. And if you want to do so, you can find that information, the link in the video description below. Thank you guys so much for listening as always, and we'll talk to you next time on b-schaeff Daily. Peace.